Greetings, fellow hermits. My name is Dan, and you might know me from the Shelter Cats podcast as Dan the Catman. So I'm going to stick with Dan the Catman. So welcome, fellow hermits. Welcome to a new podcast called The Hermit Life. And as for the past year, I've been hosting, and I'm hosting with my friend Michelle, the Shelter Cats podcast. And as the podcast kind of evolved from me talking about cats to me interviewing people who had an impact on the lives of cats, to my friend Michelle and I interviewing people that had an impact on the lives of cats, I've had this kind of growing sense of this kind of growing desire to talk about a little more about my own life in terms of one very important aspect. I'm a hermit. I've been a hermit for the past 2 years, ever since my last major relationship ended. And I jettisoned all of that toxicity from a very toxic situation out of my life. I've lived my life as a virtual hermit. I work from home. I have everything delivered to my home. And I rarely leave the house. And you know what? I love it. I live my life the way I want to live it, with my 7 cats, 6 of which are mine, 1 is a foster, and I am fulfilled, I am happy, I am at peace, and all of the negativity and toxicity of my former life is gone. So I thought, while I love doing my Shelter Cats podcast, I love talking about cats, I love spreading the word about adopting cats, and cats will definitely feature into this podcast. I wanted to start sort of a spin-off or an offshoot of my Shelter Cats podcast and talk about how great it is to be a hermit. You know, when I was younger, that was looked down upon. Oh, if you don't go out, if you don't go out with your friends, if you don't have a life, if you stay home all the time, you're a loser. You must not have a life. You must not have any friends. Nobody must like you. And I definitely felt like that as a kid, you know, FOMO, fear of missing out. So I went out, I made plans, I was very social. But the older I get, the more I've just learned to embrace the hermit life. So a podcast is born, The Hermit Life. I'll be discussing how I became a hermit, how I found that being a hermit is what I want to do, how I want to live my life. I like my home. I live in a pretty spacious 2-bedroom, lower level, that's a nice way of saying basement, apartment in Nassau County on Long Island. I work from home in the healthcare industry, and I host the Shelter Cats podcast. And I'm comfortable here. I'm happy here. My cats are my world. I don't have kids. I've never been married. So my cats are my life. Well, I have friends, and occasionally they come over, and I do go out from time to time. I have gone out to see my friends. I just don't go out very often. In fact, as I'm recording this very first kind of episode, which serves as an introduction, it is February 18th, 2024. I haven't left the house in about 3 weeks. Except to, bring out the trash, take in deliveries. I haven't left the house in about 3 weeks. With no exceptions. I haven't left the house. And I love it. It's a great life. It just is what I want to do with my life. So that's what this podcast is going to be about. It's going to be talking about how it's okay to be a hermit. It's okay to live at home. It's okay to just have your own life in your own world, in the comfort of your own home, and you could be fulfilled. Doesn't mean you don't interact with people. Technology is a wonderful thing. So that's what this podcast is going to be about. This won't be as interview-centric as my Shelter Cats podcast. It'll be mostly me, kind of documenting in small episodes how my life evolved from very social to very, I guess, antisocial. And, I'll have some friends on occasionally. I had originally planned to have my friend Shari as a co-host, but that did not work out, so I've decided to proceed myself as the host of the Hermit Life podcast. So please join me. This will be, I haven't decided if it's going to be bi-weekly or monthly, probably monthly. There's only so much you could talk about before I run out of ideas and I'll need to work on more content. So join me at least once a month where I'll discuss how I became a hermit, how I love being a hermit, how I can have friends and life and meet all my needs while rarely, if ever, leaving the house. And if you're concerned about being a hermit, or if you've just reached a point in your life where you feel the way I do, I don't need to go out and be social to be happy. This podcast is for you. So welcome to the Hermit Life.